It's about time we have an episode of that the comic readers can't spoil. Don't be that guy and ruin for everyone else. You know what's better than confronting your own demons, folks? Confronting real ones. That's right, it's finally time for the long-awaited return of the one and only demon detective, Damien Darkblood. At the end of season 3, I made it pretty clear that I was interested to see how this new plotline would play out, considering it would be entirely original, and, you know, it would have nothing to do with the comics. Also, Damien Darkblood, big highlight of me for season 1. Not just because comic readers can't spoil it, but because it's a chance to see if the writers really know what they're doing with this universe and are capable of writing original stories. So this episode will be a good test to see if the writers won't Game of Thrones this one. But before we begin, I want to let you know that I have a Patreon now. Wow, Void, you already have memberships to plug, and now we'll have to hear about this too? Not really, because there will be as much overlap as I can create between the Patreon and the memberships. It's what you'd call a package deal. Besides, if you want to support me and you like the way I do things and you want to help me make these videos but don't like the idea of YouTube taking a small cut of your membership pledge, Patreon serves as a nice alternative. Okay, that's enough self-promotion and capitalism for the day. Now it's time for a superhero show with Clancy Brown voicing a literal demon. Episode 4 of the Invincible Season 4 starts off with a very impactful scene between Art and Mark. I really like that Mark goes and talks to Art about his troubles with both being a superhero and as a human being, as Mark, the human person. I really like that Mark continuously goes and talks to Art about his troubles, both in his life as a superhero and in his life as a human being. It's a great display of how, without a father figure to turn to, Mark is kind of forced to place his troubles in other people that he trusts. In all the times that Mark has talked to Art in Invincible, like, those would be conversations normal teenage boys would have with their dad, but that's not something Mark really gets. But it's not like Art isn't a great option for who to talk to or anything. His recurring appearances as like a sort of side mentor figure for Mark, and kind of Mark's whole family for that matter, has been like a genuine delight throughout the series. Art clearly played a role in helping Omni-Man acclimatize to humanity. He talked to Debbie after the whole Omni-Man situation in season 1. He talked to Mark about his girl troubles. He's kind of been a like external mentor for the entire Grayson family. But in this scene, Mark tells Art about what happened with Russ Livingston and how he feels he doesn't deserve his costume anymore and how he's, quote, become his father. But Art, the absolute goat, is like, come on, kid, you'd have to destroy and kill a whole lot more people to be considered your father. Art still sees Mark as that same kid who came into his tailor shop a few years ago wanting to make the world a better place. And he tells Mark that when he's ready to accept that he hasn't changed for the worse and wants to remember who he was and still is, he can help him look the part. Mark is grateful and appreciative of Art's words, but as Mark is about to disagree with another depressing remark, Eve gives him a call and asks if he can do a job. Mark says he can, and he suits up in the black and blue costume one last time and heads out to the desert to finally fight that Gahor guy. And while Mark is taking care of that, we're shown hell, I guess? It doesn't look very full though, so I don't think we need to worry about any blood-sucking killer robots at the very least. Damien Darkblood and the rest of his clan are fighting Volcanica, a vicious lava lady who is the real commander of those Magma Knights we saw Doc Seismic commanding in, like, what? The last 2 fights? Let's keep that in the back of our heads for future episodes, yeah? Seems like a pretty important detail. Damien, his sister, and their whole clan get their butts kicked as Volcanica makes speeches about being the new ruler of, quote, the Underrealm, aka hell, and I will call it as such. So with all his clan members dismembered, Damien drags all their body parts in a big bag back to the cave where they take refuge. And it's where Satan also takes refuge. The Great Beast basically tells Damien to do the same thing they just did after his clan members regenerate. You know, get dismembered again. But Damien speaks out against the devil himself and is like, nah, Chief, we're getting our asses beat. We need some help. So one pentagram and drop of Omni-Man's blood later, and Mark is exorcised into hell during his battle with Gahor. Speaking of Gahor, he's finally realizing that maybe, just maybe, sexism isn't as based as he thinks it is, and he possesses the woman Mark was fighting alongside with. I don't know who this character is though. But he's been a butt-end joke this whole series. He won't be an actual threat, right? Mark is pretty confused as Damien Darkblood introduces him to Satan. Mark immediately goes for the kill since, you know, it's the fucking devil. But obviously Damien didn't summon him to kill his boss, and according to said boss,
violence like that is merely foreplay for my kind.
Okay, what the fuck? Is the devil hitting on Invincible now? This sure wasn't on my bingo card. Damien brings Mark outside and gives him the rundown on the situation. Demons and hell and all that stuff aren't exactly what humanity thinks they are. The world has gone through multiple ages of existence, and the current age is the 6th one, but it could soon end if Volcanica releases the Vial onto the surface. Satan and the demons were the ones keeping them from rising to power by torturing them eternally, but they'll soon rise to power again and ravage the earth if Volcanica isn't stopped and Satan's powers aren't restored. Mark is understandably skeptical. Damien is asking him to work for the devil, and considering Mark's current state of mind, I doubt that would make him feel much better about himself. But Damien explains that Satan isn't the one threatening the surface, nor did he ever have any intention of doing so. Ironically, if it weren't for Satan and the demons, the surface world would be just ash and bone and blood. It's not every day the demons are the good guys. But Mark is really not in the mood and doesn't even believe he's the right guy for the job, saying he'll just make it worse. But Damien spits some fiery hot truths, saying that
already as worse as can get.
This little comment pisses off Mark, and Damien apologizes, explaining that he's not trying to be insincere or anything, he's just trying to be truthful. Mark asks if they'll send him home if he helps, and they say they will, but Mark's only condition is that he won't hurt anyone. But Damien is like, nah, don't worry about it, man. Leave the violence to the demons. The plan is for Mark to retrieve Satan's crown, the source of his power. It's in this not-so-bottomless pit. Damien explains that no one opposing Volcanica has the power to actually retrieve the crown, and that he was expecting Omni-Man when he did that little summoning ritual. And poor Mark is so depressed, he replies to that with,
"Guess your spell couldn't tell us apart."
Jesus, Mark, give yourself some slack, man, come on. So Damien armors up and Mark starts flying him down, but demons continue to show that they have flawless logic, and he tells Mark to just let gravity do the work, until they, near the bottom, so Damien doesn't splatter. So as they fall, it literally turns into the Gravity Falls episode featuring a bottomless pit. Mark questioning things like if there's a heaven, and Damien giving some surprisingly good answers. And if you follow the Invincible YouTube channel, which you absolutely should if you don't, and if you see the clips they post from the upcoming episode, you'll know that they literally have the Marvel nanotech helmet conversation, which is just fucking hilarious. Say whatever you want about this episode. Call it filler, call it unrelated to the main plot, or mediocre, or whatever. Random little gag moments like this are part of why I love this show so much. Anyway, they reach the bottom, and the crown is now being guarded by our good buddy Cerberus. Not the Cerberus who be ballin', though. Damien's not doing so good, so Mark yeets him halfway up the not-so-bottomless pit and kicks the crap out of Cerberus off-screen. I'll admit, even filler fights shouldn't be part of the budget cut. At least the exchange between these two kind of makes up for it.
Do not do that again.
Honestly, I don't want to do any of this again.
As they fly back up out of the not-so-bottomless pit, the Vial aren't audibly being tortured anymore, and the Underrealm is quiet for the first time in what we can only assume is a very long time. But they make it back to the cave, and Mark tosses Satan his crown. Damien cries, "No!" as if, he shouldn't give him the crown or he's making some terrible mistake. But it just turns out...
Crown fragile.
These fucking demons, dude, I cannot. Anyway, here's a before and after of Satan pre and post crown.
Gratitude, surface dweller. Yeah, baby!
What did I just say about demons? I guess I technically didn't say it, but they're fucking funny. Even as Damien bows and motions Mark to bow, even Mark is like, yeah, I'm not bowing to Satan. I think the mere act of bowing to Satan is bad enough, but I don't think with what Mark is going through, it'd make him feel any better. Like, Mark wouldn't be surprised if his dad bowed to Satan. The scene that follows this goofy-ass scene is actually, really well written and very impactful. As Mark looks out on hell itself, Damien sits with him and tells him that humanity made hell into a bedtime story to keep humans good. Keep the kids from misbehaving or whatever. But Damien says that humans are already good without such stories. Mark doesn't know if that's true, but Damien reinforces that he does know. After all, why would Mark become a hero to save people if they weren't worth saving? Damien quickly realizes that Mark isn't talking about other humans when he says he isn't sure if they're all good. he's talking about himself. Mark is just dismissive at first and just wants to go home, but Damien can tell Mark needs to be told that the path of being good isn't easy. His own kind are a great example that he uses. If they torture the Vile for all eternity, they don't ravage the world and everyone lives in peace. If they didn't torture the Vile, then, well, everyone would die. Damien puts it as having to choose between the lesser of two evils. And Mark calls bullshit, saying that there's always another way that doesn't involve killing or torture. Damien kind of agrees with maybe, but he's quick to point out how, in the case of his people anyway, the world literally could not wait for them to find another solution, and they simply did what had to be done. I think Mark's reaction to his own plight and Damien's plight is probably the best expression to describe how he's feeling. But after that little conversation, Clan Darkblood suits up. But Damien's sister isn't quite fully healed yet. She tells Damien to take her weapon and their father's heirloom into battle, and to, well...
kick hideous bitch's ass.
Fucking demons, man. With Mark's ongoing inner conflict, he's playing the support role when they confront Volcanica. He gets Satan close to her and keeps the Magma Knights at bay while the demons take care of the violence, just as they agreed. But somehow, even with his powers restored, fucking Satan can't even take down this brimstone-breathed lady. She must be quite the foe. I hope Mark has what it takes to actually beat her.
Just stop.
Mark, she's getting back up. Look, oh. Never mind. She's getting back up again. Wow. Okay, this bitch is persistent. After getting her head blown off enough times, Volcanica retreats, declaring that she won't forget what happened here today. And Mark quietly says,
Me neither.
Usually when characters have that tone of voice, it's usually a sign that something sinister is going on in their thoughts. But with Mark and everything that's transpired here in the Underrealm, I think it's actually Mark taking what Damien said to heart. All right, so short rewind of this fight. It's interesting that Mark killed Volcanica the same way he killed Russ, you know, blowing her head into molten mush. As soon as he did it, he turned around to the demons, fucking demons, and tried to justify his actions, saying that even the Guardians, or if someone else had stopped her after she had gotten to the surface, people still would have died if that's where she ended up. Then she gets back up and, you know, gets her head blown off a couple more times. I think this whole situation is helping Mark realize something really important, and that being what Damien said earlier. The path of good isn't easy. Sometimes you go to space, sometimes you fight whack jobs like Angstrom, and sometimes innocent people die. But even more importantly, sometimes you need to choose between the lesser of two evils when time is of the essence and countless lives are at stake. Is there some alternative, less violent, or even bloodless solution that could be figured out? Maybe, depending on the situation. But sometimes in a world of threatening situations, there isn't always time to find those solutions, and you gotta do the best you can with whatever options you have. Season 3 was all about Mark coming to terms that sometimes the villains need to go down permanently to keep the world and his family safe. But Season 4 so far has been about coping with those decisions and learning how to carry that weight. Cecil told Mark to let him carry that weight back in episode 3, or at least let him make the call so it's not all on Mark. But Cecil wants to keep Mark, quote, a good person so he doesn't end up like his father. I'm sure Cecil genuinely cares about Mark to some degree, but in moments like this, I'm constantly reminded of something Debbie said in season 2. I think it was season 2 anyway. Debbie once said that she understands Cecil has a job to do, but she also understands that everything else is secondary to that job. That line has stuck with me because ever since I heard it, it has been 100% accurate to Cecil's character. So even if Cecil does genuinely care about Mark, that care is secondary to his duty to also consider what Mark would become if he ever turned shitheel. And Mark will always have that in his mind whenever the two of them talk, especially because of everything that went down between them in season 3. But Damien, on the other hand, he's a demon. He is the symbol of what humans perceive as evil. Yet, here he is, a beast of hell itself, telling Mark that the path of good isn't easy, and sometimes choosing between the lesser of two evils is the best you can do. Where Cecil was trying to be controlling about what burdens Mark should and shouldn't have, Damien told him that doing what you gotta do isn't easy, and crucially, not ruling out the possibility of an alternative, less violent solution. With everything Cecil has done to Mark, I'm starting to see Damien's viewpoint when he said there's a far worse place waiting for him than hell when Cecil exorcised Damien in season 1. I mean, a little bit anyway. Seeing Mark's responses responses to Cecil and Damien's perspectives on doing shitty things for the sake of the greater good is genuinely one of my favorite parts of this season so far. And the serious interactions between Mark and Damien Darkblood are genuinely great scenes that are very well written. Mark gives Cecil tons of shit and anger, whereas he just gives Damien a simple Anyway, let's wrap up this episode, yeah? Also, is it just me, or has Mark finally finished an adventure where he didn't mess up his costume? After Volcanica is defeated, one of the vials raised from the magma, and as the devil is about to handle it, he takes a look at the gaping holes in his body and he's like, yeah, this one's all yours, Invincible. Unsurprisingly, Mark kicks it back into the lava with a quick and hard thud, but not before it gets a good claw off on his torso and rips his costume.
So close.
Yeah, you were, Mark. So fucking close to having one adventure without getting your costume messed up. Thankfully, all is well and good, and the, good guys have won the day, and the only thing left to do is to send Mark home. But Satan is actually, like, kind of a chill dude, it turns out, because he absolves Damien of whatever debt he was paying and decides to send the demon detective back to the surface too. All's well that ends well, right? It was. This ending was doing really good. This episode was ending so well, so good, and I really liked this episode. But there's one scene that just hurts me.
It's gonna be the most gorgeous superpowered super baby ever.
No, why do you have a different voice actor? The continuity's ruined. And why is your college dorm wall just fucking brick.png? Also, it appears I was wrong in the prior episode. Eve and Mark were using protection. And William speculates, well, Mark's a superhero, so could his be super too? Okay, can we skip the rest of this scene, please? We're skipping this one. TLDR, Eve is not ready to have a baby and is venting to it about William. Next scene, Mark grabs his old costume from Art's place and does a semi-optimistic fly around the world, of course. And after he gets home, Debbie is telling the boys that she's selling the house and buying a new one with Paul. At first, they're both pretty skeptical and Mark is like kind of really surprised about it, but then Mark realizes he doesn't really have a reason to be upset. His mom is making a choice that will make her happy, and he acknowledges that. Sure, he's a little uncertain because he's lived in that house for so long, but it's clear that his happiness for his mother is the overriding emotion. Now, this episode ends with a tonally inconsistent scene. I mean, it's not inconsistent with the themes or anything, but after Mark grabbed his old costume from Art, which is like representative of the hero Mark wants to be or remembers or trying to remember who he was anyway, or from his perspective anyway, trying to remember who he was, he flies around with a smile and congratulates his mother on the move. Having him sit on that goddamn roof looking glum and depressed after all that just feels kind of off. He's doing good one scene, he's doing pretty good in the next scene, and the next one directly after that, he's just all upset. I think it would make a little bit more sense if this roof scene happened directly after he got back from hell. I think it would just be better placement in terms of keeping a consistent tone, or at least a consistent pace of tone. Either way, Eve comes out to talk to Mark and he drops the hell is real bombshell. She's confused after Mark says a couple of other things, and right as she is about to drop the baby bombshell, the dad is back bombshell drops. Oh, and Alan's there too. They appear in the sky. Omni-Man is like, I'm sorry, Mark, there's no time. It's time for war. And then we roll the first set of credits. Time for the real ending scene. Damien Darkblood is back on the surface. The demon detective, he's back. And he receives a telepathic call from his boss. Satan tells him that something must have happened on the surface world to cause Volcanica to enrage and go full burn the world mentality. Satan orders Damien to investigate and even says he might need to come to the surface himself to stop whatever is causing these disturbances. And the episode ends the only way it could have. And that, my friends, was the plot of Invincible Season 4, Episode 4. There's quite a few, bullet points, I guess, that I'd like to go over. So, right out of the gate, why the fuck does William have a different voice actor? Okay, look, it's not a massive deal, but fuck, man, characters getting new VAs always throws me off. Secondly, while a lot of people, including myself, have their criticisms about this episode, the writing really isn't one of them for the most part. In all honesty, I'd say the writing is just as good as most other episodes of this show. I saw this great comment from someone on Reddit who said they saw a lot of people disliking or blatantly hating this episode just because it's, quote, not related to anything that's going on. And by that, I'm sure they mean things like it's not related to like the Viltrumite War, the Omni-Man plot, Eve's powers and the baby, and so on. And yeah, yeah, this plot doesn't have too much to do with those. But that comment went on to say how people shouldn't let that fact be their sole reason for not liking this episode. Because this episode was pretty important and significant for Mark's character development, and I think that was the entire point. Not because he got a costume change, but because of what the costume change represents and the events that led up to it. As I said earlier in the video, the one-on-one conversations between Mark and Damien were like genuinely well written and had a number of layers to them that added to the weight of the dialogue between them. Like the most obvious one, that Mark is in hell being told by a demon, a fucking demon, that being good isn't easy. In their first conversation on the cliff, Mark lashed out at Damien and got angry at him when he responded to Mark's thoughts with just what he saw as the objective truth. But their second conversation, on the other hand, instead of lashing out and getting upset, Mark just goes along with the conversation and thinks about what Damien is telling him. And I bet he's also thinking about what Art told him in the beginning of the episode. Both of these conversations obviously got Mark really genuinely thinking about it all. And while he totally hasn't figured it out yet, you can tell he's genuinely contemplating when he gives us a simple Sure, this episode didn't have huge advances on the Viltrum war plot and brick wall PNG, but despite the colorful cast of demons and all of that, it was an important stepping stone of an episode for what Mark is going through right now as a character. I'd say Mark is in the depression stage of the stages of grief at the moment. And the good news is we're past the anger, because Mark was a lot angrier in the first and third episodes than he was in this one. Aside from my small criticisms like brick wall PNG and the placement of the roof scene, the whole hell plotline with Damien Darkblood was genuinely really solid and enjoyable to watch. Not because there were super intense fights and the stakes felt super high or anything like that, but because when Mark thought he was at rock bottom, a demon from literal rock bottom helped him realize that he wasn't. But what do you think? Do you think Damien is actually just a moronic demon like Cecil said in season 1? Do you think Mark will be happy or sad that his dad is still alive? And do you think that we'll get William's original voice actor back? I don't know, but please leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. We're at the halfway mark of the season, and the next 2 episodes are some of the ones I'm looking forward to the most, just judging by the thumbnails alone. And if you've been enjoying my coverage of Invincible Season 4 and are looking forward to the remaining episodes, hit the like and sub button. I'd really appreciate that. That'd mean a lot to me. And of course, if you made it this far in the video, you probably genuinely like the way we do things around here. And if you want to show me a little bit of extra support, consider becoming a channel member or checking out the Patreon. Not only do you get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards like early video access and exclusive vlogs, but you also directly support me in the process, help me keep a roof over my head, and help me keep this channel alive. But that is going to do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah.